All right. I think it worked and fired up, and everything should be good. Gonna pop out the chat so I can see it a bit better. All right. You know, I have to say, I really do. I am grateful that the last, 4 or 5 shows, if not more, have started up without the YouTube problems that I was having for a while. I'm grateful that it's been starting up nice and easy. And I hope that you guys are having a good morning, or afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are. Let's see, what have we got here in the chat? We've got 138 people watching already. That's pretty cool. It's 11:30 at night here in Australia. I hope to hear about Age of Sigmar before bed. Greetings from Poland. California. Bleep Bloop says, wow, never caught a live morning show before. This is cool. Thanks, Adam. You're welcome, Bleep Bloop. Sean McDonald. Greetings. What else have we got? Jakarta, Ontario, Canada, the Netherlands, College, Pennsylvania, Cincinnati. What else have we got? Straya, Finland, Glasgow, Vermont, Malaysia, Sweden, Poland, Stoke-on-Trent. Another Poland. We've got Ireland, France, Northern Germany, Japan, Singapore, Brazil, Western Australia, Tampa, Florida. I've been to Tampa back in the 7th grade. It's 3 in the afternoon in the UK. That does make sense. Yeah. We're 6 hours behind over here in Wisconsin. Denmark, Pittsburgh, the Ukraine, New Jersey, Saskatchewan. I like saying Saskatchewan. What else have we got here? Singapore. So I hope you guys have been enjoying your day already so far, or have enjoyed the day that is about to end. I hope that some of you got to see the video that I did on Friday. Like I said, when I did it, I felt as if I was a little bit of a rant. And I know that what I consider to be a rant and what much of YouTube considers to be a rant is not necessarily the same thing. But, you know, when I was editing it, I'm like, this partially seems a little harsh sometimes, but on the other hand, sometimes you need, at least I know I do, sometimes I need a kick just to kind of get moving a little bit better on stuff. So, yeah, definitely. I hope, and I've heard from a lot of people, and there's been zillions of comments in that video. A lot of people have said that it helps, and so I want to do a little bit more kind of, there's two fronts, things that I want to do a little bit more of coming up. Number one is I want to be, if I can, maybe a little bit more motivational. If I can make videos that help you get motivated, you know, all the better. I'm definitely interested in doing that. The other thing I want to do is I, again, want to start making more painting tips that really apply to the beginning and newer painters. I mean, I'm going to be perfectly honest. I've been doing it for a long time, but I'm no pro. You know, like when Sam does a video on the channel and you know, gives you some painting tips, he is showing you like his kind of like super low end stuff because he's, you know, way up here. For me, I don't paint way up here. I'm hoping in the next year to try to do what I consider to be a display piece. I have this idea in my head for like a little diorama, and I'm going to try to spend a lot of time on trying to paint it. But generally, I paint for the tabletop. I paint for gaming, and though I have not necessarily gotten crazy better over time, I think I have gotten more efficient and faster. So those are the types of things that I would like to share with you guys going forward, because that's the type of stuff that when you first start out, being able to find a way to do it quicker and being able to find a way to do it easier and smarter always makes, you know, people happier. If it takes you forever to get 5 guys painted because you don't know some of the techniques that would make it a lot easier and quicker, then that is, you know, discouraging. But if you can really kind of crank through some stuff and make it happen, well, then it makes you more motivated to keep going, at least in my opinion. All right, so Nicholas says that the 40K transports snippet just came out. So for those of you, and we're not going to talk too much about this, I don't think, today, but maybe some. For those of you that have been paying attention to the Warhammer community website, they've been putting out an article every single day, not every business day, every single day, about 8th edition 40K and what they're doing with it. So, what's going on is that they're telling us basically what's going to kind of happen with 8th edition, which is, I think, a smart idea. And yesterday, what was yesterday's? I forget what yesterday's was, but today's is about transports. So, Matt says, I think your video on Friday was exactly what my friend needed. He backed your Patreon and bought Harlequins and about 25 pots of paint that night, and now has a primed Shadow War Armageddon team. Oh, well, excellent. I'm glad to hear it. That's a good one. Lewis says, how long has the stream been going? About 6 minutes or so, according to YouTube. The Noob Painter says, some dumb little convention in the middle of Wisconsin is motivating me to get some stuff done. Painted more in the last week than I have in quite some time. Yeah, I've got some stuff going on, too, that I want to get done in time for the convention. And just as a mention, it's not on the website yet, but Sam, Painter Sam, he is going to be doing some classes, some free classes. I mean, you have to pay to get into the convention, the expo. I keep calling it a convention. But he's going to have some classes there, 2 on Saturday and 1 on Sunday, I believe. I talked to him about that just recently, and we're going to make that happen. So I'm going to be putting it into the website soon. But just for those of you who might be able to come, keep an eye out on that. We'll probably do some sort of video or chit-chat or something. And he's hopefully going to be in on the next live show. Because the next live show, if everything works right, the next live show next Sunday, or not next Sunday, but 2 Sundays from now, will be from Tabletop Minions Expo. For those of you that haven't heard of Tabletop Minions Expo, it's a little convention thing that I'm trying to start up here in Wisconsin. This is the first year. I'm calling it the beta test year. It's going to be very small, but it's if you go to the website, if you go to tabletopminions.org/TMX for Tabletop Minions Expo, you can find out more information about it, stuff like that. So, all right. What else have we got over here? Good morning from sunny Arizona. Thank you for the most recent video about just doing it. I'm one of those very guilty of not finding time to hobby. Going to work on that. Well, that's kind of the point. That was what I was hoping to do. So yeah, I'm glad that it's helping out. Jack says, I like the new direction Games Workshop is taking. Only 1 or 2 rules I'm concerned about so far, mostly just hyped. That's for, I'm assuming 8th edition. And yeah, I think a lot of people are pretty, positive about it and interested. So I think that's going to be kind of cool. Dorn says, Adam, lots of videos about painting, not a lot about clipping and assembly. Maybe a video on that for the new hobbyists. Yeah, I've thought about that. I mean, to a lot of us who've been doing it for even a little while, it seems like super obvious. It's just, But I remember when I was a little kid, and I used to do model cars and model planes, I used to take the pieces off the sprue just by twisting them back and forth until they came off. And of course, that doesn't make the greatest surface where the sprue comes away and everything. So yeah, that's not a bad idea. Hey, Matthew's here. Excellent. And there's a link to the Tabletop Minions Expo thingy website. Alrighty. What else we got? Wet Palette saved my painting life. Love your videos, man. Well, thank you very much. My Deathcore models are really motivating me to paint. When you love the model, it really helps. Yeah. And I think I'm going to eventually have to do a video about that, too. People, there are people out there that will tell you, if you're very competitive, then in a lot of games you have to pick very specific models because they are the best, kind of like costed for points and that kind of stuff. But if you're not super competitive, like me, I'm not super competitive, then you want really to have to pick the models that you like the most. They may not be the most efficient, but if you like them, you'll play with them more. You'll be sure to get them painted, that kind of stuff. So I'm thinking about maybe doing a video about that eventually. So yeah. What else have we got? Iron Fang says the AOS, the Age of Sigmar Mausoleum Terrain Kit is up for pre-order on the GW site. Yeah, see, so they had, I believe that kit is the old Garden of Morr, Morr, which they've been doing for a while, and I think they just took like 2 or 3 of them and squished them together into one box, and now it's just a much bigger like mausoleum. I could be wrong. I haven't looked really super closely at it. When I first saw that terrain piece, I was like, I think that's the Garden of Morr, and then I got distracted and had to do other stuff. But if I go back and look at it, I'm wondering if it's just, say, 3 of those put together in a box. Kind of like if you're into the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings stuff, they have a Lake Town like little kind of building with like a boat and a dock, but you can also buy a 3-pack basically of all of those to build a whole bunch of Lake Town, which is that's a really cool kit, because it's interesting because it's great for all kinds of different miniatures games, all kinds of old fantasy type stuff, or even medieval, because it's not like covered in skulls and all that stuff, because it's Hobbit, they don't cover everything in skulls over there at the Hobbit. So yeah. What else have we got here? Let me see. Afternoon from England. Really appreciate the videos. Thank you very much. Kenny says, Adam, as someone who has recently gotten back into the hobby, would you say 40K and the like are more popular than ever? It is in England, I'd say. I think that 40K was waning a bit because of, to some degree, people not liking 7th edition as much. And I'm going to be kind of perfectly honest, and because of Star Wars X-Wing. There's a website called ICV2, which stands for something internal correspondence, and it's V2. It's the second version. It's an industry kind of website aimed towards retailers predominantly, and it talks about comics and graphic novels and tabletop games and Funko Pop, vinyl dudes and all that kind of stuff. It's aimed towards that type of crowd, and they every quarter do a kind of a sales sort of, they put the top 5 in lots of different categories. Collectible miniatures like like HeroClix and stuff like that. Role-playing games, collectible card games. And they also do something called non-collectible miniatures. Non-collectible miniatures is where we pretty much hang out. And for the last 2 quarters, the number 1 has been Star Wars X-Wing. 40K has held that spot for nearly as long as ICV2 has been around. But the last 2 quarters, they've been in second place because of Star Wars X-Wing. This last time it was Star Wars X-Wing, then it was 40K, then it was War Machine, and then, for the first time ever, it was Age of Sigmar in 4th place, and then 5th place was, I think, Hordes, also from Privateer Press. So, yeah, that's kind of interesting. And I think that a lot of what we're seeing, Matthew's put a link to ICV2 in there. It's not a bad site. But I got to say that I think some of that is what's also helping, that and the new leadership and all that stuff is helping to drive why they're making such, really specific changes to 8th edition. And I think that I see a lot of people online who are cautiously optimistic to wildly optimistic. And I think you're going to start to see it maybe getting, kind of coming back, because it was sort of like, I knew a lot of guys that just weren't playing it anymore because it was just so difficult to keep track of all the different interactions between all the different, stuff and all that jazz. So, yeah, we'll see how that works out, though. Definitely. Thomas Woodhouse asks, hey, Adam, what's your favorite Age of Sigmar army at the moment and why? Well, I really do still always like Chaos quite a bit. Mostly Nurgle flavored. Ugh, that's probably a terrible flavor, actually. But, yeah, I would say that those are probably still my favorite sculpts. Now, that being said, I also have a Death army, because I like Death a lot, too. I just wish that some of the models were newer, you know what I mean? I really hope that we've seen like some sort of new models that are Death related, that are really designed more for Shadespire, which isn't coming till much later in the year. But I'm hoping that they're going to be starting to build some more stuff and coming out with some new stuff for Death. That'd be really nice. I mean, they've got the flying sky dwarves and all that stuff that's just come out. Great. I would like to see some new stuff for Death, but we'll see how it goes. Yeah, so I would say probably I like Chaos Nurgle a lot, just because Putrid Blight Kings are awesome. Harbinger of Decay is awesome. Gutrot Spume is awesome. Glotkin, all those great models, so I'm a big fan. They're probably not the best to play with if I was out there trying to win games, but I do okay, But again, I play casually with friends, so. So let me talk a little bit about, speaking of Age of Sigmar, let me talk a little bit about Age of Sigmar. So about, I don't know, a month or two ago, they announced that just through a simple graphic on the Facebook, I think, it might have been on the Warhammer community page, but I saw it on Facebook. It was just a thing that said, hey, Age of Sigmar Skirmish, it's coming. It'll be cool. And that was about it. That's all the information we got. And then on Friday, all of a sudden they said, oh yeah, by the way, I think again it was on the Facebook, or maybe I think it was Friday. They said, oh yeah, by the way, tomorrow you'll be able to pre-order that Age of Sigmar Skirmish, and it's going to come out next week on Saturday. And everyone kind of went, what? Well, not everyone. Everyone except for miniwargaming.com went, what? Because Saturday morning, miniwargaming.com put out a review of the skirmish, Age of Sigmar Skirmish, and because they had a copy of it, and I think because they've been working with Games Workshop, and Games Workshop must have sent it to them early. And then in the Vault, which is their kind of paywall sort of thing on Age of Sigmar, they also had a actual battle report. So I'm a Vault member for them, and so I watched the battle report, watched the review, and it was very interesting. Let me do this. Okay, so this is the stuff over here this is the pre-order information that went up, like I said, yesterday. Wait, hang on, there we go. Over here at the Warhammer community. So it's warhammer-community.com. If you guys haven't been going to the site, it's always got really great information. All this 8th edition stuff that they've been talking about has all been coming out of warhammer-community.com. But this is the information about the new Warhammer Skirmish book. Now the trick is here, this is like a 41-page book. It's like stapled on the edges. It's not a thick book with like a flat. They call it perfect bound in the industry because I'm that kind of dork. But it's not a perfect bound book. It's saddle stitch. So just in case you were wondering, which means it's got staples on the edge. So it's pretty thin. It's a thin little 41 or 42 page book, and it's interesting because initially when I first started reading about it, I'm like, okay, so it's basically Kill Team. It's like Kill Team, but for Age of Sigmar. But then I started watching the review and they started talking about it, and it's this weird mix, frankly. So there was a lot of people when this first was announced, they're like, oh, it's going to be Mordheim. They're going to make it Mordheim. This is the new Age of Sigmar Mordheim. But it's not exactly. So Shadow War Armageddon, when it came out, was the new Necromunda. But it was using the old Necromunda rules, slightly modified, just with 40k guys and stuff like that instead of gangers, okay? This is a weird hybrid because it's not using the Mordheim rules. It's using the Age of Sigmar rules, kind of as if it was a Kill Team kind of thing. So it's just basically like, use the normal, Age of Sigmar rules, but here's a bunch of rules you need to ignore, and here's some other ones you need to add in, just like Kill Team. Your guys don't have to move around in squads or whatever. Now each person moves, singularly as its own unit, and there's a bunch of other stuff as well. The thing that's interesting, though, is that the fluff is basically kind of a knockoff of Mordheim. The concept is there's this city that kind of pops up around this mineral that is in the ground that they turn into some sort of these pieces of glass that allow the people who live in the city to live longer, and it becomes a big city center. This is all in the mortal realms, so, this is after everything's all gone to hell. And it's on the world of death. So anyway, it allows the people to live longer. That makes Nagash unhappy because he doesn't like it when people live too long because he's Nagash. And so he eventually smites the city, just like the comet landed on Mordheim, and destroys it. And then it is completely destroyed for thousands of years or something. And now people are going back in, treasure hunters going back in to find these pieces of glass or whatever and all that kind of junk. Which is basically the story of Mordheim. Mordheim, blah, blah, blah. Comet, and then now there's these pieces of weird stone. People are going in, treasure hunters looking for the weird stone. So it's using Mordheim's kind of story, but it's using a kill team type version of Age of Sigmar. So it's an interesting kind of straddle of the things there. And so I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see if they're ever actually going to do a real Mordheim reboot, or if this is kind of checking that box, because they've said that they're going to be redoing all these kind of specialist games, and I don't know if this counts or not. I'm not sure, frankly. They're also selling, some kits of like, oh, here's a bunch of models you could get that would make great war bands. The thing that's interesting about the game, from what I can tell, is again, it's much smaller armies. I mean, you can go big. If you use a horde army, you can go big. Here's these Nurglings. That's a lot of Nurglings in there. Oh, here's the super cool Mausoleum set they're selling with it too. And then they're also selling a cool, like, printed mat that's all kind of goes with it. That's sort of cool too. But yeah, so it's kind of interesting. You can go with a lot of models if you have to, or if you want to, depending on what you're doing. If I went with skeletons, I'd probably bring a bunch. Because it's a points thing, but you can also play it open. They've got a lot of different stuff in there because it's Age of Sigmar, so they give you options. But it's a very interesting thing. You're still doing the fighting, but it's a lot of one-on-one fighting because you're not moving an entire unit up against an entire unit. Everybody's kind of separate. Sometimes it's 2-on-1s, that kind of stuff, because you've maybe made two of your guys move. The rules are very Age of Sigmar. There's just you don't put them in groups. And there's a different point structure completely, and just a lot of, I don't know, if you get the chance, go watch the review over at their Mini Wargaming's YouTube page, and if you're a Vault member, you can watch the the bat rep. It's kind of interesting, but the review of the book is free for anybody on YouTube, so it's kind of interesting. I'm interested in it. I don't know that it's going to necessarily. It may. One of the things that's great about Shadow War Armageddon, and Kill Team as well, is it allows you to build small little groups. So you can have a small little group of figures, and then you can play with them and have a good time, and then go, I always wanted to try these guys too. And then you can build another small little group and kind of do that. This will probably allow you to do that as well to some degree. Like, I could see myself, my third army, which is Stormcast, and they're all sitting in a box completely unbuilt, I could see potentially trying to put some of them together just to play Skirmish, because then I wouldn't have to go through and build full 1,000 points. I could just put together some, to fit that sort of thing. The thing that's interesting too is if you do play in campaign mode, it does have a campaign mode just like, say, Mordheim did, except it's different. It's not, nobody gets better. So unlike, say, again, Necromunda or Shadow War Armageddon, you don't, as your guys go along, they have a tendency to potentially get, tougher or stronger or more wounds or whatever, things like that. In this, nobody ever progresses. You just get more guys. So if you win a battle, you might get, and the points are called renown points. You might get 12 renown points, whereas your opponent who lost gets like 6 or something like that. And then you can use that just pretty much to buy more models. That's pretty much it. So it's a very simple, it's if anything, it's almost as if it's a simplified kind of version of, say, Shadow War Armageddon or something like that, And it kind of goes back to what they've been doing lately, what Games Workshop's been doing to give you all kinds of different entry points depending on what kind of game you want to play, depending on your skill level, your interest level. It used to be, for years, that you either started playing 40K or you started playing fantasy. And both of them had a pretty steep learning curve, and that was pretty much it. You know what I mean? If you didn't want to play either one of those or didn't have the time or the resources or whatever, you didn't get into the hobby. They've gotten smart over the last several years and said, you know what? We need to make a lot of entrance vectors for all kinds of different people. Someone wants to get in and get hardcore into tournaments and all that stuff, they can start cranking out a huge 2,000, 2,500 point 40K army. Awesome. Somebody wants to get into a little bit less of a thing, they could go into Age of Sigmar. Now we're giving them also Age of Sigmar Skirmish, which is even lesser yet, and then in between Age of Sigmar Skirmish and, say, like, maybe Age of Sigmar, then you've also got like Shadow War Armageddon. There's the board games they've been putting out, all this stuff, which is all really smart, and it really helps to get people into the hobby. I hear from people to time who say, there's more game companies out there than Games Workshop. And there totally are. I agree, there are. The fact of the matter is that these guys are the biggest, and they're the most viewed. They're the most out there amongst non-tabletop gamers. There's tons of people. I talk to people all the time who are like, well, I never used to play tabletop games, but then I started playing Dawn of War on PC, and then I started thinking it was really cool, and now I've got an Eldar army, or whatever. And you'll notice, didn't I just see it somewhere? I swear I saw, right here. There's a Dawn of War 3 ad right here on their website. They didn't really used to push the video games as much anymore, but again, they've gotten smart. Before, they just used to sell the license and then not really talk about it. Now they focus on the video games because they know it's another way to get people into the hobby and to help their business. And let's be perfectly frank, they're not doing it altruistically because, they really want people to be in the hobby. They're a business. They have shareholders. They have to give dividends, all that jazz. So they have to try to make money. It's just that they were doing it, in my opinion, in a really dumb way for years and years, and now they've decided maybe that's not the best way to go. Another thing that some of you who are, if you don't pay attention to the business as much as sometimes I do because I'm a dork and because I have friends that own stores, they just made a new change back in May. For years, you couldn't sell Games Workshop stuff if you were an online retailer. Like if you had if you wanted to sell stuff on your website, so people would put your Games Workshop stuff into a shopping cart and then buy it. That was not allowed by Games Workshop. So nobody did. So companies like the War Store and Frontline Gaming would email you, if you requested you want to buy stuff from them, they would email you like an Excel document, and you have to go through and look for what you want and then write them back an email and say, this is what I would want. And then they would send you a PayPal request. You would pay the PayPal request, and that's how they got around it. Because Games Workshop didn't want online retailers to do that kind of stuff. Well, they've changed their mind now. They're like, you know what? We like money. We think that if more people who don't live anywhere near a game store would like to buy things online, we would like to make it easier for them to do so. And then they don't have to buy it from eBay and sometimes get ripped off or whatever. So, that's what they're doing. These are the changes they're making. And this, skirmish game is just another way for people who are interested in the hobby but just having a hard time getting pushed into it. Now they've got a reason. Because, and Shadespire, which is coming out towards the end of the year, is going to be, again, another vector. It's going to be a more competitive type game, but it's going to be aiming towards the competitive people who don't necessarily want a hobby because it's going to be in colored plastic. They're not be pre-paints, but you'll have like your Bloodbound guys in red and your Stormcast guys in blue, and I think the Death Army guys are going to be kind of a bone color. And if you want to paint them, awesome, but if you don't, you'll be able to do these kind of quick, competitive style, almost kind of like X-Wing type games. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that's going to go. All right, anyway, I'm going to get back to the chat now because when I'm looking at the website here and on the screen, I can't see the chat. So I'm going to bring that back up. Poke. Oh dear, what did I just do? Oh, okay, we're good. Let's see here. Jay Thomas says, is Skirmish just Hinterlands 3.0? Maybe. Well, I don't know about that. So for those of you that don't know, and I haven't really paid super close attention to this, Hinterlands, so okay, 40K has Kill Team, which is made by Games Workshop. Another group of guys who have a painting blog called the Heralds of Ruin, they also made a game that they called Kill Team, which I kind of wish they would have called it something else just because I was always nervous they were going to get sued. But so the Heralds of Ruin Kill Team was a Kill Team type game, but it was a totally different type. It was designed for small skirmishy kind of battles, but it was a completely different subset and completely built differently than regular GW Kill Team was. Hinterlands was kind of the same thing. It was designed to be a skirmishy type game for Age of Sigmar, made by fans, given away for free, whatever. So from what I understand, that sometimes this, that was kind of the way that it sort of worked. What have we got here? I'm seeing Games Workshop everywhere now. There's even a Warhammer stand with a bunch of box sets models at my local university bookshop, which I've never seen before. I've never seen that before in a university bookstore either. That's kind of interesting. C. Mawson says, I don't get this GW didn't allow online sales stuff. Was that US only? Because UK websites were listing GW products for years. It may have been. It was originally, well, yeah. I mean, US definitely. And then Canada still could for a while. And then they made it so Canada couldn't anymore. And this was 4 or 5 years ago, or maybe longer. And the thing was, so for those of you that are relatively new, miniwargaming.com was originally a game store in Canada, and they made a lot of videos, but they were a game store. And it was predominantly online retailer, because, Canada's huge, and there's only like 85 people. Well, there's more than that, but there's a lot of open space in Canada, so they were also an online retailer. You could go there and buy from them in Welland, or you could, order online. And then Games Workshop changed the licensing, or whatever their agreement is with the people, and then all of a sudden, Mini Wargaming was like, all right, well, we're going to close our store now because we can't sell stuff online, and that was our majority of our business. And that's when they transitioned to doing just YouTube. And it's working out real well for them. They've expanded their operation, and everything's great and everything. So, yeah, it was, you couldn't buy the stuff online in US, Canada, and then they did something to Australia. And then there was some sort of, because I feel bad for the people in Australia, because they always, like, the GW stuff there still is super crazy expensive. And for a while, if you were a store in the US or the UK or Canada, you weren't supposed to sell to Australia, I believe, because for a while it was actually far cheaper to order, as an Australian, order your GW stuff direct from the UK and have it shipped to Australia than it was to buy it from a local Australia store. So I don't know if they've fixed that yet with Australia yet. If you guys know, let me know. But yeah, so there's just they're starting to fix things and make things better. So that's it. Joe Flavor says, hi, I'm one of the 85 Canadians. There are more than 85 Canadians. I'm just saying you guys have an amazing amount of space, and not, it's not all full of people. Kind of like our Wyoming. It's a really big sized state, and there's only 500,000 people there. So what else have we got? So I remember when they closed down the store, they had a big sale. Yeah, they did. And it was, and they talked about it, like they openly talked about it in videos and said, this is why we're shutting down our store, because, Games Workshop was X amount of our business, and now we can't sell their stuff anymore. And so that's all changed, it seems. So that's, again, new people in there and all that kind of stuff. Let's see. Addie says, I'm ashamed to say, in Australia, we do buy from UK sellers on eBay. Well, they can't stop the eBay, as it turns out. But, yeah, I'm getting some Australian feedback here that definitely that Australian issue is still probably a problem. I do wish that they could figure out a way to fix that, though. Australia wasn't allowed to buy overseas from Games Workshop. Yeah, and it's just, I mean, I understand that there's a lot of shipping involved in getting it over to that side of the planet and all that stuff, but yeah, what they need is a factory in Australia. See, bringing jobs to Australia, that'd be good. They could just start making those things there, and then sell them not just in Australia, but all over like the Pacific Rim area, that kind of stuff. Anyway, Greg T. Dude says, is Skirmish like Mordheim? Sort of. It has a very Mordheim story to it, but different, for Age of Sigmar. And it has campaign system, but it's a very limited campaign system. Like I said before, your guys don't get better; you just get more guys. But it's just using the normal Age of Sigmar rules that have been slightly modified. It's not using the old Mordheim rules. Whereas Shadow War Armageddon, which just came out a couple months ago, that is basically using the old Necromunda rules slightly modified. It's not using like 8th or 7th edition or even 8th edition, 40k. So definitely. VJ Morph says, I hate paying more, but we'll do it to support the local store. Well, yeah, I mean, you have to support your local stores if you want to play there. And if you I did a video about that years ago about supporting your local store. If you go to the local store, you need to support it. The worst, in my opinion, is people who come and hang out at the local store quite a bit and use their terrain and play and all that stuff, and they buy everything online, and don't ever give any money to the store in any way. Like, I'm not saying you have to buy every last thing necessarily always from your store, but Man, I've seen guys at my local one of my local stores. They come in. I know they don't buy any of their stuff from the guy, and they even bring in their own snacks. You know what I mean? And sometimes the local store guy doesn't, bust their chops about it or anything. And I think that's because he's selling snacks. At least if you're going to come into the store and not buy any stuff, at least buy some snacks. And so sometimes that happens. That doesn't, or that people come in and don't do that. I just think it's wrong. So that's why I made a video about it quite a while ago. Get a chance to check it out. Mitsuru says, make the company in Indonesia, please. It'll be cheaper. Well, Indonesia is pretty close to Australia, so yeah, could do that. I'm hearing a lot of people that are interested in having an Aussie GW factory. All right, I'll see what I can do. I can't do anything. Dwarf Lord says, Games Workshop is making a push in Japan. They're releasing single-figure boxed Space Marines over here to push the brand. Yeah, I've seen some of those online. I saw some pictures of the cool, single-figure, Space Marines. And I think that what they're trying to do, and again, it's a pretty smart thing, it's almost as if they're trying to sneak it into the Gundam folks. You know what I mean? Like, the Gundam people like to buy these single figures and then go, cool, I'm going to paint this. And they're like, well, we've got some figures that might work. So some of those new, bigger Primaris Marines or whatever, they're trying to sell them single so that, the modelers in Japan, because modeling is huge in Japan, it's like they're trying to kind of do that. If you go to any of the, a regular hobby shop, not a gaming shop, but a shop that sells, model rockets and remote control cars and stuff like that, and model airplanes, model cars, you're starting to see some GW kits that are designed just for them, too. They are technically the old Assault on Black Reach 5th edition starter box models, but they're designed for beginners. They come with some paints in the box and a brush and then some stuff, like some orc stuff or some Space Marine stuff. And they're the older sculpts from those kind of, snap-together Assault on Black Reach kits, but they're pretty cool. And like I said, they're spreading out in a lot of different areas, and it makes sense. Andrew says, I'm still a little salty about the revamp of Warhammer Fantasy. I understand the reasons and it was a good move, but they killed Bretonnia, so yeah, a little salty. Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I have a suspicion that at some point they're going to start coming back with new sculpts, and it will probably be more of a Free Peoples than a specific Bretonnia, They're going to probably try to, not compress, but compile, kind of bring together a lot of the humans into one faction, and it's going to be probably called Free Peoples or something like that. It'll be interesting to see how that works out. Will of the Way says, does terrain and verticality matter in AOS Skirmish? There's more... In the battle that I saw, there was far more terrain. I don't think that they make you... You know how, normally in Age of Sigmar, you're supposed to pick each of the pieces of terrain and then roll a die, and then this one's deadly, and this one's sinister, and this one's Mo, and this one's curly, or whatever. They don't seem to have that in the skirmish. Now, they may have been just the guys that were playing it when I watched it on Mini Wargaming, just decided not to do it, but they had a lot of terrain on the board, a lot more than I see in a normal Age of Sigmar game. But again, you're moving the guys around singularly, so it makes more sense. Again, Age of Sigmar is not frequently a lot about shooting, not nearly as much as, say, 40K or other types of sci-fi or kind of games like that, where you have to have cover so you don't get shot as much. Age of Sigmar is a lot more about getting into battles and things. So, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I'll have to go... to be fair, they didn't talk a ton about the terrain stuff that I saw, so it'll be interesting to see how that kind of works out. Japanese retailers are pushing the Hammer Hall, too, when I was there. Oh, that's kind of cool. GW recently opened several new stores here in Japan. Prices are still a problem, though. Japanese buyers are a lot more savvy than they think. I was talking with a guy from the Asian arm of Games Workshop, actually. We emailed back and forth a couple of times. And yeah, it does look like they're pushing out there quite a bit. I don't know a lot about how the Japanese market works, frankly. So, but like I said, I think that what they're trying to do is they're trying to aim a little bit more towards modelers. I don't know that the game itself is super popular in Asia, in anywhere really much in Asia, but the modeling, I think, is maybe what they're kind of looking at a bit more. Mini Painting Studio says Bretonians have good rules in Age of Sigmar. I play 1.5k, 1,500 points a lot. Well, that's interesting. That's cool. I haven't played ever against a Bretonian. Like, most of my opponents have been... I play against Sylvaneth a lot, because a friend of mine plays Sylvaneth. I play against some Orcs. I play against some Chaos. Have I even played against any... Yeah, I have played against some Stormcast. Yeah. Charles says, just got a chance to tune in. Love the videos. Do you like the Seraphon army? Oh, I've played against Seraphon too. Thank you for reminding me. Yes. Yeah, I think they're cool. I don't know why I didn't end up going with them. I think it was because I didn't think I needed a fourth army, frankly. But some of their models, I really like those lizard guys, and it's I would love to paint maybe a couple of them just someday for fun, because I would try to make them look like I would do a lot of research just on Google image search and look for cool lizard, brightly colored lizard, and try to kind of match up some of that style. Most of what I paint is usually not super naturalistic. Painting Nurgle is not super difficult because you just have to make it look sort of green and gross and maybe a little pussy, which, there's some technique to that, don't get me wrong, but trying to match something a little bit more from, like, real life, trying to make it look like a specific type of salamander or lizard or whatever, if you're doing Seraphon stuff, I think that's kind of, yeah, maybe. I think that could be kind of more difficult, but I'd still like to give it a try someday. JP Got Rockets says, it would be great to see Battle of Vedros. Battle of Vedros was what I was talking about before, the stuff that's showing up in regular hobby stores. It would be great to see Battle of Vedros in Hobby Lobby Michaels, AC Moore, and Pat Catan's. I've not heard of Pat Catan's before. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that, I don't think they're aiming towards the big chains, but I know that... Have I seen it at Hobby Town? I swear I've seen it at Hobby Town. But not Hobby Lobby. Hobby Lobby does a lot of cars and planes, like models, but I don't know that they would... Maybe they wouldn't. I don't know. Hobby Lobby's a little religious as far as their organization is concerned, so they may not be into... I don't know. I mean, orcs, soldiers, they're humans. It's like they're not... there's no demon kits for... Battle of Vedros or whatever, so that shouldn't be a problem. But yeah, it would be nice to see it kind of spread out like that, maybe. But at least places like Hobby Town, that's still a benefit too. Andrew says, I enjoyed your historical gaming video. I'm building a Scottish pike and shot army via Warlord Games. My worry is I may not find anyone who plays historical gaming, for it is less popular. Yeah, no, I mean, it's true. Historical wargaming is generally a bit less popular these days. Years ago, it was like the only thing, back, 30-ish years ago. And then, things like Warhammer Fantasy, things like Warhammer 40k, things like, Star Wars and all kinds of stuff, they've gotten more popular. HeroClix, that kind of stuff. There are clubs, I mean, I know, at least in my area, I know of clubs that there are around here that are into more historical stuff. So you may be able to find some things, do some searches. One of the things that we're hoping to show off, actually, I can talk about it a little bit. I'm going to be very vague here for a second, and I apologize. One of the things I'm hoping to talk about at Tabletop Minions Expo, which is coming up in 2 weeks, is I'm hoping to talk about the project that I've been working on at my day job, which you'd be like, well, why would we care? Well, it's because the project that I'm working on at my day job, I work for a company, we make mobile apps, predominantly for companies, business to business. So we build it for this company so they can use it for their customers or whatever. You're an insurance company, you need an app, we do it. You're a company that has an app that's in iOS, but you don't know how to do it in Android, we do it. Or the other way around. You did it in Android, you don't know how to do it in iOS, we do it. And we're a small company, but we're all tabletop gamers. Well, we got a new guy starting on Monday. I don't know if he's a tabletop gamer. But evidently during the interview he knew what Warhammer was, so that's a good thing. Anyway, we're working on an app that is designed to get tabletop gamers, not just war gamers, but tabletop gamers of all stripes, card gamers, board gamers, whatever, to get them connected to each other. And we're hoping to be able to show off pre-alpha stuff at Tabletop Minions Expo. we're working on both the Android version and the Apple version, the iOS version at the same time, and so they're moving along at a decent clip. They're a little farther behind than we wanted to be right now, but the thing is that we are a company that works predominantly for clients. We work for money. And the thing is that we've been getting a lot more clients lately than... So if we had not been getting a lot of clients, that would be kind of problematic, but then we'd have a lot more time to work on this sort of side project. We've been really busy, and we've had to hire more people, and so the side project has kind of lagged a bit. Because we're not a startup, we're not a... we don't have venture capital, we're not doing any of that stuff. We are a company that makes products for companies, and we like to do this thing on the side because we want to make our own product. So anyway, long story short, we hope to be fully in beta and for it to be out in the iOS store and the Google Play store by the time Gen Con rolls around, which is mid-August. But absolutely we do want to have something to show off by Tabletop Minions Expo. So, and I'll probably make a video about it, hopefully, but it'll be pre-alpha and you won't be able to download it yet. But it's going to be an app that's designed for you to be able to find people to play with in your local area. So if you're saying, hey, I'm interested in, Pike and Shot or other type of historical games, hopefully you'll be able to find people, locally to be able to do that. Using things like Facebook and stuff like that can be really difficult because there's so much other stuff going on there in Facebook. We're not going to make this into a social media, or we're not going to make this into a social network. It's not going to be a place that you're going to post memes about, muskets or space marines or nurglings. It's going to be a place where you just find gamers and then you connect that way. So yeah, it's coming. It's very close. I'm going to type in a website here, and you guys, if you're interested, can go check it out. I am game4.com. It didn't make it into a link, but that's where. Right now, there's a website, and it is it's just it's a what do you call it? It's a teaser site, and there's a place where you can put in your email, and then we will send you guys emails. We won't spam you or sell it or anything, but we'll let you know. Anyway, that's kind of where we're going right now, and so for those of you that have been, because I've been hearing it for years. People are like, I just really want to find more people to play with. I don't have I don't know where to find people to play this game or that game, and we want to try to fix that. So, the Bishop asks, is the app going to be international or U.S.? It definitely has plans to be international. There's no reason why we wouldn't do that. We're going to we want to kind of start it out small and then kind of grow slowly. So we may just start it around Wisconsin while we're beta testing and then kind of grow from there. But definitely, yeah, we want to have it, worldwide. So it is not technically Tinder for wargaming, just in case you guys are wondering. I know some of you have said that. It's different than that. There have been other apps out there that have been just like, oh, here's some gamers in your area. Have fun. Why don't you make friends? And we as gamers, that's not our thing, particularly. You know what I mean? When you go to a gaming convention, I'm going to just talk about it a little bit more for a second, then I'm going to stop. When I know, Matt, that the links are your job, but you didn't know what the link was, I don't think. Well, maybe you did. Anyway, when you go to a gaming convention, you don't just stand around in a big room and look at each other and then go, hey, how you doing? Oh, pretty good. Do you like to play games? Yeah, that's why I'm here at the convention. Oh, you want to play D&D? No, I don't play D&D. I play Magic the Gathering. Oh, okay. That's not what you do at a gaming convention. When you go to a gaming convention, you look at the program or the listings and you go, wow, Star Trek Settlers of Catan, that's what I want to play. And then you go over and you go to the table that has the Star Trek Settlers of Catan, and now all the people at that table want to play Star Trek Settlers of Catan, and you guys are trading Star Trek quotes back and forth and talking about setting phasers for sheep or whatever. And now you're all on the same page, and now you've made some friends possibly with people who have a like idea. Just throwing you in the deep end and saying, here's gamers who live near you, that's not going to work. But saying, here's some events that you could go to if you were interested, that's one thing. And there's another half to the app, too, that I'll explain later on. But it's designed to work that way. It's designed to work with local stores better, so local stores can put their stuff in there. It's a whole thing. We've been working on it for, well, this coming fall, it'll be 2 years. But since they first kind of came up with the idea and started up, so... Anyway, like I said, we're definitely hoping to be able to talk more about it at TMX and maybe do a video and start to kind of talk about it in its pre-alpha state. And then, like I said, definitely we want to have it available as beta for people to be able to download, hopefully by hopefully by Gen Con, which is mid-August. So we'll see how that goes. All right. What have we got? Let's see here. Paul Scarfo says, I know this is all about Sigmar at the moment, but have any of you heard of a game that just got kickstarted called Massive Darkness? I have not, no. I did get a copy of Dark Souls, which is probably not the same, I'm sure. But I did get a copy of Dark Souls from Steamforged Games recently. It just showed up last week. And so I'm going to probably do some sort of talk about it, I think, because it seems to be a gateway game. And the interesting thing to me about a gateway game, you know I like gateway games. I like games that bring people from board gaming into wargaming. The interesting thing about this, besides the fact that the models are really cool, is that it's also for video gamers, because Dark Souls is a video game. So it brings So basically what's happening is it's it's a video game. So it brings in video gamers who might be interested in this type of game, but it also brings board gamers in, and then it's still kind of war-gamey. It's more like arena-type battle. It's not like you're, having a whole bunch of soldiers. It's more kind of one-on-one arena battle, but it's still kind of miniatures related. So I've looked at the models, and I think it's really cool, too. What else have we got? Adam, you definitely need a category for fun player or power gamer. In the app. Oh, I see. Well, like I said, again, it's really going to be more about finding events in your area. There will also be another section. The two main areas are, one's about events, and the other one is, so if any of you have ever been to a game store, usually in the back of the game store somewhere, there's like a cork board. And on the cork board, there is usually like a bunch of 3x5 cards, and people write, want to play, 4th edition D&D or Pathfinder or whatever, call Chet at, this number. And it's kind of like a looking for players area. Well, we want to have something like that. That's going to be the other half of the app. One is going to be all events and stuff like that, and the other one is going to be all really more along the lines of looking for players. So you'll be able to put in a listing and say, I want to play this, 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 this. People will be able to search through that, but it will be all based off of how close they are to you. So if you're in Kansas, you're not going to see a guy who wants to play this game who lives in California. You're going to see people who are near you, that kind of stuff. Because again, the whole concept of mobile, one of the benefits to mobile in comparison to computers is the fact that they always pretty much use some sort of location data. Now, you don't actually have to have the location data turned on in your phone if you don't want to. Some people don't like it because they think it drains the battery, which sometimes it does depending on the phone. But you'll be able to put in a zip code, say this is where I live. Or if you're traveling somewhere, like if you're going someplace for work or whatever, and you want to see if there's any game stores in the area, you can punch in 90210, which is the only zip code I know outside of my own, I think. And then you'll be able, when you're in Beverly Hills, you'll be able to see what events and game stores might be going on there. So that's kind of the idea behind it. It's not just looking for, I want to see people in my area, and there's not really going to be pictures and stuff. It's not like Tinder, for those of you that have all been saying it. It's not like that. It's basically, here are events near you, and if you want to put in events, that's cool, and your stores can put in events, and that's cool, and you can find out that stuff. And then the other half of it is, here are people looking to play these games, and you kind of search more by the games and say, I'm really looking to play Car Wars. Wow, there's a guy who's only 20 minutes away from me who wants to also play Car Wars. I had no idea, I used to run this little gaming convention here in town for years. 11 years I ran this gaming convention called OshCon. I'm wearing an OshCon t-shirt right now, as a matter of fact. An old one, by the way. Anyway, anyway, my point was, I ran that convention for a decade, and I would still run into people in my hometown who were gamers who had never heard of it. Because it was just, you just ships passing in the night, they maybe go to a different shop, or they don't ever look at the signs in the window, because I'm putting up signs in the windows of the shops, I'm doing all this stuff. So having an app that says, yeah, this guy wants to play Car Wars, and he lives near you, that's going to be, I think, really super helpful. So I don't want to go on about it too much, but that's where I'm at. Let's see. Green Stuff Games says, Adam, seems like a game you would like, Adam, Fallout. I've been, I I don't know. I looked at some of the sculpts, and they look, I think I talked about this a little bit in the irregular live show that I did yesterday for the Patreon people. The models should look good because they're pulling the three-dimensional data from the video game to some degree and modifying it. Obviously, they couldn't use that data straight and make models out of it. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm not as big of a fan of Fallout as I used to be. I used to be really big into it, and now I'm not as much into that. I'm into regular, more, I don't know, different types of post-apocalyptic stuff. And I don't know, it's very stylized, the Fallout stuff. It's like this sort of like neo-50s, and I never did quite understand. I should do some search around on Wiki and try to figure out why, even though it's 2077 when the bombs drop, why everybody thinks acts like it's the 50s, kind of. You know what I mean? I just sort of took it as like, oh yeah, that's the way they do it. And then when I started playing the fourth one, I was like, but why? Why did they do that? That's very strange. Anyway, but yeah, I know that if it brings more people, again, if it's going to bring people from the video game into wargaming, I kind of like that. Definitely. So, definitely. Evan Simons, how much should I trust Cool Mini or not ratings? I don't know what kind of ratings you're talking about. The only ratings I know on Cool Mini or not are like if you put, there's like the Cool Mini or not when it first started was about putting up pictures of your miniature that you painted, and then people would rate it, and it was based off of an old website, I don't know if it's still around or not, that used to be called Hot or Not, where people would put pictures of themselves up, and then people would mark whether or not they thought they were hot or not on a sliding scale, I think between 1 and 10. Anyway, yeah. So if those are the ratings you're talking about, I know that sometimes it can be a bit of a popularity contest. Like a well-known painter puts up a new piece and people will vote it up just because they really like that painter. I've heard that story before. But otherwise, if you're talking about like ratings of other games, I don't know anything about how they do that. So, hello, Adam. I got some Bones minis from Reaper. Do you have any tips on how to prime them, or should I just paint them after cleaning? I have heard that sometimes Bones minis, whatever that material that they make, that the Bones minis are made out of, can sometimes be difficult to prime. I've only painted 3 or 4 different Bones minis in my time, and I've always primed them with Krylon camouflage. I did a video about 2-3 years ago about Krylon camouflage spray paint. It has this, Krylon makes this stuff called fusion technology that sticks really super well to plastic. Their camouflage paints only come in 6 colors, but they're super flat matte, which means they're great as a primer because they take paint really well. I've never had any bad luck using that particular type of spray paint on Reaper Bones, but I've heard from other people who've said that it doesn't work as well. With certain that sometimes it's hard to do. What else have we got here? VJ Morph says, not into the Fallout fluff myself. Yeah. Willie David, Uncle Adam, what are your thoughts about using Age of Sigmar Skirmish and the upcoming Shadespire as gateway games to try to convert X-Wing players and possibly video gamers? Well, that's a very good question, actually. I think Shadespire is completely designed to do that. Maybe not, well, yeah, video gamers to some degree as well. X-Wing has got a real benefit in that the stuff's pre-painted and pre-built and you don't have to mess with it. The new Shadespire stuff, you don't have to paint it because it's in colored plastic, but it would look nicer if you did. But you don't have to. But they are definitely, from people I talked to at Adepticon, because they showed it off at Adepticon and they let people play it at Adepticon. Terry and her husband Nathan, if you watch the video I did from Adepticon about being a wargaming couple, Terry, she's got her own YouTube channel and all that stuff, and they both write from time to time for Geek and Sundry's website. And they both got to play the Shadespire game at Adepticon, and they were saying that basically it's like you play, I think they said you generally play about 3 games, best of 3 in like 45 minutes. So that's really kind of short and quick, and it's designed to be very competitive. Both of them have not played any GW stuff for a long time, but they both said we could see getting back into it because of Shadespire. So if it's going to work out really well for that, it will be a great gateway game to get people in. Because if you're only having to use like 4, 5, 6 models to play your game, and then you start to think, well, maybe I could paint them. Or maybe you go find a friend who's, likes to paint but doesn't necessarily have a lot of stuff on their plate right now. Or maybe you pay him, maybe you trade something, maybe you go, okay, well, I'll mow your lawn 4 times if you paint these guys, or whatever. I mean, there's lots of different options. That kind of thing, if Shadespire stuff really could be a big deal. It could be a big deal for them in helping to be another gateway game, another entrance vector like I've talked about, earlier. I prime Bones figures with either Gesso or Vallejo primer, says Dorky Dad. Well, that sounds like it would probably work. Gesso, definitely. Gesso, for those of you that don't know, is more of an art supply kind of thing that's aimed a little bit more towards fine art people. If you paint oil paints directly onto a piece of canvas, over time the oil paint will eat the canvas, and then the canvas will fall apart and then your painting will die. So Gesso is the thing that you paint on the raw canvas before you put oil paint on it. And so you get it in art supply stores, and it is it used to have chalk in it. It was mostly white. There's a lot of different colors. There's black and white generally, the ones that I've seen, but it's got a bit more of an acrylic kind of base to it. And you can just basically kind of paint it onto your model, and it will look like you've put on too much, but as it dries, it really constricts and gets into all the nooks and crannies, and it works kind of well. If you're in a place like, if you live in an apartment and you can't spray paint outside or you can't spray paint inside, you should never really spray paint inside. Gesso may be a thing to look for. It's spelled Gesso. Look at your local art supply store. They'll probably be able to find it for you. But it's not a bad primer, and I can understand why it would stick real well to the Reaper Bones stuff because because of the way that it kind of tightens up, I think. Shadespire looks cool. We'll pick it up. Looks fun to maybe play with my wife. Yeah, I think it's going to be kind of cool too, so we'll see how it goes. It's going to be allegedly later in 2017, so fall. Probably in time for Christmas. If they were smart, it would make sense. Definitely. Jack Rowley says, hey, Adam, you should start using YouTube Super Chat. Super Chat. Oh, that's the pay thing. I don't know. I've seen other people use it, not necessarily in our, I don't know if I've seen people use it in our, wargaming thing. I have seen people use it on other channels that I watch and stuff. I'm not sure. I don't know. I know what you're talking about. It's basically YouTube sort of trying to get in on Twitch's market a little bit, so people can pay for a chat thing to go to the top and stay there for a while. And I don't know if I want to. I don't know. I know what you mean, but I appreciate it, but I don't know if I want to go down that road or not. Legionnaire says Gesso is great if you live in areas with high humidity, so you don't have to rattle can outside. That's also a good point. I can see that definitely. Andrew says, I've seen people buy Fireforge Games Templar Knights and Men-at-Arms and build them into Bretonia units. The models are slightly smaller, but it's a creative substitute. In a lot of situations, I like kit bashing that kind of stuff, so that sounds like kind of a fun thing. I'm going to do a video soon coming up about kit bashing, actually. I've got... What have I got? I have a box of the Frostgrave Barbarians, and then I have another box from Wargames Factory, which is hard to find now these days, Apocalypse Survivors. So that box of Apocalypse Survivors comes with like tons of like AK-47s and stuff like that. So I'm going to take the bodies from the Barbarians, who kind of look like and are dressed like the wildlings from Game of Thrones, so like big like fur, coats and stuff like that. And I'm going to give them AK-47s and stuff like that, maybe different heads, and then make them like post-apocalyptic gangs. I think that'll be a lot of fun. So just messing around and kit bashing like that, I find to be kind of fun stuff. Adam, what would be a better intro for new players? Age of Sigmar Skirmish or Song of Blades and Heroes? That's a good question. Song of Blades and Heroes will probably be cheaper because you should be able to get the PDF for $8. Age of Sigmar doesn't cost anything rules-wise, but the Skirmish book will. I don't know how much, actually. I guess I didn't look. They did the pre-order, and I never looked to see how much it was going to cost. Why don't we go do that right now? Do. Let's go on a field trip, folks. All right. Yeah, I live in there. And, it's going to be $10. Well, that's not too bad. $10. Okay. So, the price difference is not a big deal between the two. $8 versus $10. Of course, this is a printed thing, the skirmish thing, and the PDF would be $8 from Song of Blades and Heroes. If you wanted a book, it would be $15. So technically, it's more expensive if you want that book. But, whatever. $80 for that mat. They make these neoprene mats over here, and that's really cool, but they put them in a box. And I bet you they get all weird and foldy when they're in that box. I don't know why they don't put them in a tube. Well, anyway. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, really, I think Song of Blades and Heroes would probably be easier to teach, if I had to be perfectly honest. Or, not that I wouldn't want to be honest, but you see what I'm saying? I think it would be easier to teach that in comparison to even Age of Sigmar, frankly. Plus, then you can use whatever the heck kind of models you want. So that's also a benefit, too. You can use Reaper Bones dudes and stuff like that. Or even, I suppose you can even use HeroClix if you can find the right ones. Any point in trying to get your local tabletop store to open their own bits market? Our local tabletop store used to kind of do that because they also sold online. So if you just went in there and said, hey, I need a such and such sword from the so-and-so, they usually had it. And they just went in the back. But they had an eBay store that they did it through as well. So if they wanted to sell the stuff on eBay and also sell it locally, you could maybe convince them to do that. But if it takes a hell of a lot of time, frankly. And if they've already got plenty of time taken up by trying to get as much of their store built and ready to go and all that stuff, they probably don't have the time to do both sometimes. So that's a concern. Six Gunner says, is this weird or am I too much into wargaming? Sun is shining and it's 50 or 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm so happy because I can prime my minis by spray outside. No, I don't think that's weird at all, man. I'm in the same situation. There's times when I was at a couple of years back, I was at a horror film festival here in town. It was not too far away from my house. It was just downtown. And I left the horror film festival in the afternoon for about an hour and a half because it was like fall, but it was one of the last really good days that I thought that there was going to be for priming. It was like really dry, but still like 68, 69 degrees, in October. So I ran home. Actually, I didn't prime. I dull coated. I had to dull coat a whole bunch of models, and then I went back to the horror film festival so that I could, watch more horror movies. And so, yeah, I totally understand that. I've done that kind of stuff myself. Scathed Zombie says the boxes fit on shelves better, both in warehouses and stores. That's as far as the mats from GW go. Yeah, no, I get that. It does take up a lot less space, and I understand that. But as a player, though, I prefer like the frontline gaming, like battle mats and stuff that they do, because they come with that nice case. Like if you've ever used a frontline or any of those kind of, more often than not, they come with a case that's got like a shoulder strap and a big zipper and all that stuff, and that's way nicer. So that's why I guess I haven't bought any of the GW ones, probably. So yeah. What else have we got? The Kill Team book they have now is just the booklet. Yeah, I believe that they're selling the booklet still. They just don't have the box anymore with all the stuff in it, which I get. Well, because also the box came with a tiny version of the 7th edition rules, so they didn't. They probably don't want to be pushing that anymore because 8th edition is on its way out. So I get that. Is 40K Kill Team similar in scale to Bolt Action? If you mean like 28 millimeter scale, pretty much. If you mean the number of models, no. Bolt Action generally is about, could be as many as 30 models plus a tank, whereas Kill Team is usually 10, maybe 15. Maybe you could pull 20 if you did like really cheap orcs, like cheap point-wise. But yeah, Kill Team is generally fewer models than something like Bolt Action. Bolt Action is not particularly skirmish. It's unless you call it large skirmish. But yeah, Bolt Action is a great game. Don't get me wrong. I like specifically Conflict 47, which is kind of the weird World War II version. But that being said, it is designed to generally run almost like Age of Sigmar, like 1,000 points. So you're looking at probably usually 25 to 30 models plus a tank, or including a tank, depending on your forces. So yeah. Adam, I need a good alternative for the Glotkin. Any suggestions? I don't know if he's big enough, but you could maybe look at Reaper Bones makes a Cthulhu. And like I said, again, I don't know that he's big enough, but you could maybe take a look at him. I'm not sure. I don't think he's tall enough, and he doesn't have any guys on him. That's the thing. The thing about Glotkin that's so interesting is that the reason it's called Glotkin is it's 3 Glot brothers. That's their last name, the Glot brothers, and it's 2 guys standing on the 3rd brother's shoulders. So the big, huge green monster is one of the brothers, and then there's 2 other guys riding on the top of him who are considerably smaller, and that's why they're the Glotkin. And I haven't seen any other kind of model quite like that. It's an amazing model, frankly. Is there any risk involved in stripping a model with simple green if the mini has green stuff on it? My Tau Pathfinders have green stuff cloaks, so I'm hesitant to try anything risky. Green stuff. I don't think it would really break the green stuff down. It's an epoxy putty, I believe. So I don't think so. Honestly, your best bet would be to just find another little piece of green stuff, throw it into some simple green, and see what happens to it over time. That'd be the best way to test it. But I've not heard of it messing with that. I know that when I've used either Super Clean or Simple Green, Super Clean is the purple stuff that I like. I know that it's sometimes the glue, the CA glue bonds break, and so I have to re-glue the model together, which is not that big of a deal, more often than not. A lot of times the models, if you get them like on eBay, they've got too much glue on them anyway. Yeah, I've not heard anything about Simple Green messing with green stuff. So, yeah, definitely. Hey Adam, you mentioned that you picked up a copy of the Rogue Trader at a convention. Do you remember the price? I wanted to get one too, but it's £80 on eBay, and you cannot buy it from the GW website. I believe I paid $55 US, so that's considerably less than 80 euros, not pounds. Yeah, so that's a little higher, I think, than the original price was. But yeah, when I bought it at Adepticon, I picked it up from the Forge World booth, and it was $55, I believe. So. Try some green stuff and simple green. Yeah, well, yeah. I bumped into my local store manager outside in the cold Norway rain, priming Marines. Yeah, that's not a good idea. I would definitely not prime in the rain. That's not going to work out. You're going to get some fuzzy-looking models at best. Jamie asks, have you heard of a game called Wasteman? I have. Why have I heard of Wasteman? I want to say that Andy 2D6 on his channel talked to the guy who runs Wasteman. I don't remember what the game is about. The models were kind of crazy, and I remember I can visualize the logo in my head, but that's about it. Otherwise, I don't really know anything about it, frankly. But I do remember watching one of the Andy's live shows. I don't think it was the Andy and Rem show, because that's generally about Age of Sigmar. I think it was Andy 2D6 Friday, is I think what he was calling it for quite a while, where he was talking about all kinds of different tabletop games. And I think he did an online interview, like a Skype call thing with the guy who does Wasteman, so that was cool. Zandos Dwarf King says, 20 models for Age of Sigmar for 1,000 points? I can't get below 50 even if I try hard. Well, you should run some Varangard, because that's 3 models for 360 points. So, yeah, that's kind of my issue, is that I'm running, the Varangard eat up a ton of points just by themselves for 3 dudes. And then, now, admittedly, my Death Army at 1,000 points is nearly 70 models because I've got 60 skeletons alone in my death army because skeletons are so cheap. I've got three units of 20. It's like 20 with spears, 20 with sword and board, and 20 archers. And then there's some other stuff and whatever. But for my Chaos Army, those Varangard eat up a ton of points. So, yeah, definitely. Does anyone else think that the Khorne Skull Cannon is a little bit goofy looking? I'm planning to buy Skaven Warp Lightning Cannon and decorate it as a Khorne style. Any advice for shooting units for Khorne Bloodbound? Chaos is not super into shooting. Skaven is to some degree, so you got that going for you. Like, I have worked, because my Nurgle guys, I got nothing to shoot with my Nurgle guys. So that's why I've added in Skaven, because then there's that cool catapult that flings poop, and there's well, I'm not taking the lightning cannon, I'm taking the catapult instead. But then there's also warp fire throwers, there's those weird, they shoot these globs, these like glass globes that then make it's like a Deathwind launcher or something like that. And so I've got some range because of Skaven, and I did technically buy some Beastmen, Rangers with bows, which I haven't built yet. But yeah, that will give me some goat people with arrows, so that'll be fun. But yeah, range is not, I mean, some of the newer armies have a ton of range in Age of Sigmar, but Chaos is not super big into range, and I don't know what you would use for if you wanted to go straight Khorne Bloodbound. There's like very little of anything other than that Skull Cannon, which you're right is a goofy looking model. I would like to bring a Hell Cannon eventually into my army, but I don't want to make it out of, it's like metal and just old and ugh. I've been kicking around the idea of just making my own, like sculpting my own out of, making it Nurgle-y, taking like a piece of PVC pipe for the barrel and then covering it in green stuff and putting special, making wheels out of wood and doing all that jazz. I just haven't found the time because I don't know, the Hell Cannon's fine, but we'll see. Right now, the Skaven stuff's helping me out. Mr. Mendeleev, I'd love to show you my wargame creation project, but I don't want to pollute your chat with YouTube links. How can I reach you? If you go to the website, tabletopminions.org, there's a contact page. You can send information in there if you guys want to. Did Rogue Trader have all the Marines with the bird beaks? Beaky Marines were kind of a big deal in the early days of 40k, so there was a lot of Beaky Marines in Rogue Trader. Yeah, that's kind of where those guys originally came from. And you can still find them, like even a regular tactical Marine box now, I think, comes with at least a couple of Beaky Marines in there. I like the Beaky Marine look, so I do put them on and I haven't built Marines in quite some time, but when I was, a couple of years ago, I was always trying to work more Beaky Marines into that look. I built a chapter master for my made-up chapter, and he's got a Beaky Marine, but it's one of those where it's also got like the leaves on the head, like the laurel wreath kind of thing going on. So he had like a white Beaky helmet with like gold laurel wreath, and it was kind of cool looking. Worked out well. Had some Spartan resin models soaking in it for a week. Oh yeah, probably talking about stripping models. Yeah, I like. I've got a model. Well, here's the deal. When I did the video a while back about, stripping models, the pitfalls of stripping, I believe was the title. And in the comments, tons of people, mostly from the UK, obviously, were like, "Oh, you should use this stuff called Dettol, Dettol, which is it's designed for, it's like an antiseptic kind of just chemical. Anyway, long story short, you can't get it really in America very easily, but I did finally find it on Amazon, and I actually got a bottle of it. It showed up last week, and I'm going to try it out on a model. Actually, just going to grab this over here. This is an upcoming project. You guys are seeing it here first. I'm just going to move some things around and see if I can do... Am I going to be able to do that? No, I'm not. So I'm not able to show you that right now. I mean, I will, but not with the other camera. Let's see if I can get this to open up even. So this is a model I found on eBay. And a while back, I had an idea. This is wrapped very well. I had an idea a while back about finding a really, really rough-looking model on eBay and then doing a series or just even maybe a single video on about how to fix it, or how to strip it and turn it into something better. So I found, and you're not going to be able to see it very well because this camera's not going to focus close. It's kind of a corn. It's not going to focus. Well, wait, maybe it is. Hang on. It's a corn dude, like a aspiring champion. He's all metal. There we go. And he looks actually pretty good here in comparison to how he looks in like he has got stuff hanging off of him. The paint is just caked on. And so I'm going to strip this model, probably using Dettol, because I've never used it before. And then I'm going to make a show about how I remade him and then just kind of compare. It's going to be kind of like This Old House, but for a miniature. Maybe, sort of. I haven't quite decided on the name of it yet. I'm going to stop crinkling all this bubble wrap, so it probably is annoying. Yeah, so I'm going to try that out. And I've been also hearing about something called LA Awesome, which evidently you can get in America, and you predominantly get it at dollar stores. I have not come across it yet, but I want to find it eventually and then be able to kind of see what that looks like as well. So, yeah, I do want to kind of go back into stripping. It sounds terrible. I do want to go back into finding different chemicals to use for stripping and figure out kind of what things we're going to use for. But, yeah, definitely. Jeffrey Dempster, I am not going to call it Pimp My Model. I don't want to do that. I use Dettol. It reeks, so remember to use washing up liquid afterwards to get rid of the smell. Good suggestion. I appreciate it. Definitely. Daniel Beam says, has he talked about Skirmish yet? Yes, I did. Talked about it a good deal earlier, actually. Yeah, it's gonna be cool. I think I'm looking forward to it. I'll hopefully do a video about it and stuff like that. So it's coming out next week. I don't know that I'll talk about it in the next live show because the next live show will be at TMX. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, definitely. Model makeover. See, that sounds like a whole different show. Actually, that sounds like America's Next Top Model. I don't know. Dettol smells way too bad. All right, we will keep trying. So I'll probably not use it in the house. Maybe is the suggestion, is I should use it outside in the garage. That's a good idea. Andrew Antreader says, painting question, I'm looking into getting a spray gun. Any tips or advice? I'm hoping that you're meaning an airbrush. Because a spray gun, I don't know what... I mean, unless you're doing terrain. I guess you could use... Like, for me, my mind says spray gun is like those big things that you use to paint your house, made by Wagner, like a power painter. Do not use those on your model. It seems like a terrible idea. You could maybe use it on big, huge pieces of terrain, like big foam pieces. But if you're talking about an airbrush, I've got a series of videos. There are currently 3-4 videos in that series about intro to airbrush, which you should watch on the channel. Go back and take a look. I think I might have a playlist. Take a look at that too. Airbrushing is great, especially if you live in an area like I do, where there are times in the year where you just can't get outside and prime because it's a frozen hellscape, or it's too humid, or it's raining, or whatever. It's good for priming. It's good for base coating. It's good for highlighting. Even if you get it just to prime, it helps you prime in the times of the year when you can't. But once you start kind of building up from there, you can do some cool highlighting stuff. You can do some cool effects. It's great for terrain. Airbrushes are awesome for that, so definitely. Torch. New series, Atom Strips. No, nobody wants to... I don't think anyone wants to see that at all. Not even a little bit. You got to get that YouTube dollar, according to Noob Painter. Not that way. No, thank you. Badger 105 Patriot. Oh, it's a type of airbrush. I use Iwata, but the Badger ones are also really good, from what I understand. Badger ones are made in America. Iwata, I think, is Japanese. Sounds Japanese a little bit. Yeah, but those are the 2 big brands that I know of. There's also Pache. I don't know anybody who uses that brand for model painting. Pache was always more of a, more hobby, or not hobby. Art supply, maybe a little bit is the right word. I don't know. But yeah, Iwata and Badger are the 2 big names. But you don't have to go with one of them. I mean, you could go with a cheaper one. Someone just asked if I've ever used an ultrasonic cleaner to strip. I have. Yes, I have. Ultrasonic cleaners are great for doing that. It's ultrasonic cleaners are generally you can get them cheap. I used to be able to get them cheap from Harbor Freight, and then Harbor Freight stopped carrying them. I don't know why. So now I have to get them from Amazon, and it's small, about the size of maybe an American football. I don't know. It's just over, and it's got a lid, and you put some stuff in there. You can put in just regular water. You can put in water and some kind of detergent if you want to, or whatever. You could throw Simple Green in there or Super Clean. That's what I do. And then throw some models in there, and then you push the button and it vibrates. It's hypersonic or ultrasonic, I guess, vibrations, which helps to shake the paint off a little bit or at least loosen it. And it usually runs for like 3 minutes and then stops. You have to push the button several times, but you do that a bunch of times, and then all of a sudden, you've got a model that you can just take it out and start brushing it with an old toothbrush. Don't use your current toothbrush, but an old toothbrush, and you can get most of the paint off in most situations. Sometimes certain sprays don't want to come off, which if you watch the Pitfalls of Stripping video that I did several years ago, you will find that in action. So there's that. But generally, I find it makes things a lot quicker. Some people just like to throw their models into like a bucket with some stripping stuff, whatever they like to use, and just let it sit for like several days. I generally like to do it a little quicker, so that's why I usually use the ultrasonic cleaner. If you have a really big model, it may not fit in the ultrasonic cleaner, so then that won't work. J Tix says, I personally use Iwata all the time. It's easier to get needles. Oh, hang on. So I personally use Iwata all the time. It's easier to get needles and replacement parts because many places sell them. You can go to any Hobby Lobby, which is an American place, for just about every bit. And that's true. Iwata seems to be the brand that Hobby Lobby sells the most. I don't ever see Badger stuff. I think sometimes Badger is sold through Michaels. I know for a while I was thinking about getting a Badger compressor, and I could find it at Michaels on their website at least. I don't know if they had them in stores. We don't have a Michaels. There's like a Michaels north of here, about 30 miles, but we do have a Hobby Lobby here in town, and that's where I bought my compressor from and my Iwata brush. And the nice thing about Hobby Lobby, for those of you in America, is that you can go to their website. They have a coupon on their website pretty much all the time that will give you 40% off of any one thing that's currently not on sale. So you go in there and you buy your Iwata airbrush, because it's usually probably not on sale, and you get 40% off. So that's a benefit. And then you come back the next day and then you buy your compressor for 40% off, and that works out real nice. So, and then Harder and Steenbeck evidently is the big brand over in Europe. I don't think we can get those over here, but I've been told in a lot of my airbrushing that Harder and Steenbeck is like the jam in the UK. Fantastic, but you pay for top quality, says Frankie Lee. Dettol brown disinfectant. Yeah, it's kind of a amber color. I haven't cracked it open, and now that you guys talk about how smelly it is, I'm glad that I did not crack it open at work, because that's where I had it delivered to. So yeah, that would have been bad. Peter Pan asks, does the stripped paint leave residue or dirt inside the ultrasonic, or does it keep it completely clean? Yeah, I mean, the material, if it flakes off of the model, does have a tendency to hang around inside the ultrasonic, but then you just what I do, sometimes what I do is I try to pour my green stuff, or not green stuff, my super green, simple green, or super clean. Man, I wish that they hadn't named them so close together. Sometimes I try to pour that stuff into like a coffee filter to try to, but other times I just let it, I use it to do a bunch of models and then I dump the stuff out. Like if you're trying to reuse the simple green or super clean, then you would try to filter it maybe to get some of the chunks out, but you don't have to, frankly. Almost all, I believe, ultrasonic cleaners have a basket inside, because the thing that you're trying to clean is not supposed to touch the metal sides of the ultrasonic cleaner, because if it does, then it won't vibrate at the right frequency, because it will be touching the side where the vibration's coming from, and then it just won't work. It needs to be the vibrations, from what I understand, the ultrasonic vibrations have to go through the fluid and hit the material, and if the material that you're trying to strip or whatever, clean in any situation, is touching the sides, it doesn't work. So you have to keep it in the little plastic basket, which does not vibrate at the same frequency, or I don't know, it's science. I'm not an ultrasonic scientist, but that's part of the reason why. So if you buy an ultrasonic cleaner, let's say on eBay, and the first thing you do is open it up and go, well, this basket is dumb, and chuck it, you have made a mistake, because you kind of need that basket to make sure that, plus it's also a lot easier just to pull the basket out to get the stuff that you want, as opposed to digging around inside there with your hands trying to find it. Because I use mine for cleaning my airbrush too, and there's like small parts that you don't want rolling around, so being able to pick up that basket and then take the parts you want out, it's work. It's good stuff. Is Dettol bad for cats? I just read that. Yes, I did just read that somewhere. That Dettol is bad, and I'm saying it wrong. I feel like I'm saying it funny, but it is evidently bad for cats. So that's another reason why I'm keeping it outside when I work with it. Yeah, it's evidently deadly to pets, and specifically cats. So I don't let the cats in the basement, so that's a benefit, but I'm not gonna... Yeah, I'll keep that stuff outside. Adam, I recently picked up some watercolor pencils to try the pencil highlighting technique you mentioned. Any tips? It's mostly for edge highlighting, obviously. At least that's what it should be generally. The way that it was taught to me was you take the edge of the pencil. So let's say this is the edge of your... this is going to be weird. This is the edge of your whatever. I don't know. Maybe it's the side of a tank. And then you rub the edge of the pencil. And this is the tip, not just the, like by the eraser. Don't do that. Use the side of the tip and rub it along and kind of build it up. And then the way it was explained to me is you can either take a brush, get a little bit wet, and then sort of use it to feather the edges so that the blend kind of goes from being like, here's the brightest color here's the brightest color of, let's say, the whatever highlight color, and then you kind of blend the edges out to make it smooth out. Or some people even just use their thumb and do one of these and just kind of rub it off on the edges. I have used number 2 pencil before on like something that's supposed to be metallic. I'll use number 2 pencil along the edges, like the sharp edges to look, and it gives it a little bit of a glint. This is a little bit different, but give that a try. Either you just use like a brush and just use it to blend the edges a little bit, or do you just even like a little on the finger and just kind of like your mom does on your face when you got something on there. Something like that would work out potentially well, and it's supposed to help just blend out that sort of, so you get an edge highlight that kind of blends out into normal, as opposed to just being a straight line that then stops. You don't want that. Here's Matthew bringing the science. Disinfectants containing phenols, those that turn cloudy when mixed with water, are of concern because cats are unable to eliminate the toxins following ingestion. So, if you've got cats, don't give them any Dettol. Don't rub it on them. Don't let them get at it. So there you go. It's science, because we like our cats. I don't know where any of mine are right now, but I assure you they're around. Dettol is phenol based, so the residue is bad if licked. That's probably not just for cats. I wouldn't lick it either, frankly. Dettol stuff is expensive. It was like $11, and I got a bottle that was maybe, I don't know, was it a liter? Maybe about a liter. Almost. Yeah. I'm finding Dettol on Amazon. Yeah, that's where I found mine. What else have we got here? Someone told me that Dettol will destroy resin minis, only used in metal and plastics. That I don't know about. I've used it, or the people that were telling me about it were telling, for metal and for plastic, but I don't know about resin. I'm always concerned about stripping resin models. Like last year, I painted one of the Death HQ units for Age of Sigmar, Krell the Undying, I think his name is, and I ordered him on eBay. It was like a used, beat-up, really grungy-looking model. And the description said he was plastic, and I guess I didn't do the research to go, oh, okay, yeah. Because I knew there was a metal version, but I did not know there was a plastic version. Well, as it turns out, there wasn't a plastic version. There's a fine cast version. So I got the fine cast Krell the Undying or whatever. And And so I didn't want to use any really harsh stuff to get the ugly paint job off of him, so I had to use some sort of real mild stuff, which did not ruin the model, but it also didn't get as much paint off as I would have liked. But, on the other hand, he's a death model, so they hang out in graveyards. If his paint is a little chunky or junky, you know, now that I've painted over the top of it, like, if I was painting an elf princess, I would definitely want to try to strip as much of the paint off to make it as smooth and you know, ethereal and whatever as possible. But like Nurgle guys, death guys, they should look grungy and stuff like that. So frankly, I could have just primed right over what he already had painted on, although there was spots on the shoulder pad where it looked like somebody had put paint on their thumb and just pushed it on there instead of a brush. That was not awesome. So yeah, so simple green, super clean, don't seem to cause too many troubles with fine cast type resin. But I probably wouldn't put fine cast into Dettol, and I certainly wouldn't put it into like isopropyl alcohol or anything like that, because I would think you would just end up with some goop. Gaddis Gaming will be at Tabletop Minions Expo, by the way. Gaddis writes, I understand there is a difference between sable brushes and synthetic brushes, how to clean them, and what paints to use. I guess I don't know. Well, I would think with sable brushes, because they're super crazy expensive, generally, you'd want to be much more careful with them. So cleaning them would be, yeah, I mean, there's that stuff, there's that paint, that brush soap that you see at the hobby stores and the art stores all the time, and it comes like a little hockey puck. It's about yay big, sort of a beige color. That stuff I'm pretty sure is safe for natural or synthetic brushes. As far as the paints are concerned, I don't know. I haven't heard about using different paints for sable brushes in comparison to synthetic brushes. That's a good question. Resin is sort of voodoo sometimes. There's all kinds of different combinations of materials that qualify as resin. Now, that's true. You know, there's something that's... Some companies use something that they like to call restic, which is like a mixture of resin and plastic somehow. And then there's, you know... there's a very big difference between fine cast resin from Games Workshop and Forge World resin. You know, it's a whole different thing. So yeah, I don't know a ton about how resin's made and, you know, what things go into it. I just know in a lot of situations I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of fine cast. Nobody really ever was. Forge World resin's better, but it still has a tendency sometimes you get, especially bigger pieces, they can be warped, you know, so you have to do some work. So... Hernan Castro says, stripping the Necron army right now. This chat is amazing. Well, there you go. I'm glad to be able to help. Matt Thomas says, Biostrip is far better for resin models. I don't know, Biostrip I haven't heard of. I'll have to look into Biostrip. All right. VJ Morph says, Masters Brush Cleaner. So good. That's the stuff. That's the stuff that you see at the stores. It's Masters Brush Cleaner, and it comes in like a little hockey puck kind of a little thing. And I think that they also make it in a cube, too. But like the hockey puck thing is like a plastic thing. You can pop the top off. You can use it to clean your brush and put the top back on. Yeah. Other people are saying the hockey puck is master brush cleaner and preserver. That's evidently that's the thing, from what I understand. Dorky Dad says, anything you think would damage or hurt the hair on your head is not going to be good with sable brushes. Well, that makes total sense, yeah. All right. Let's see here. Grishnak has been having trouble with a hornet. Now the hornet is gone. I've put it outside because it is an endangered species and even protected by law. Okay, well, that's cool. I guess I was not kept abreast, sadly, about the hornet situation, but you know, I'm glad that the crisis has been averted. Do not use alcohol-based paints with hair brushes, with natural brushes. That makes sense. I can see that. I've heard that metallic paints can wreck sable brushes. Don't remember where I read it. I've heard that sometimes that's the case as well. I bought a set of brushes at Adepticon from Games and Gears that are designed to be a little bit more... Basically, they're designed because they're synthetic brushes. The reason they were pushing them is that these are really good for metallics, because metallics can be bad for more natural brushes. So that's kind of why I bought them. Andrew says, I know you mentioned you enjoy Chaos. What do you like about them? The Nurgle stuff, which is really my jam, that's I think it's just because the models are a lot of fun to paint. I like a lot of the newer sculpts, like the Blake King stuff, and the Chaos Lord, Old Drippy, all that stuff. I really like those sculpts. I think they're fun to paint. They're fun to modify. I think that some of the fluff, just the concept of these like just decaying, sort of gross, sort of horrible kind of creatures lumbering across the battlefield. I like that. I don't know. There's just something about it, and just the whole concept of Papa Nurgle, bestowing his gifts upon you and all that stuff with the disease and all that. I just kind of like that, the storyline stuff of it. I also like Khorne well enough, but I'm not. I used to run Khorne Berserkers quite a bit when I used to play 40k back in the day. But I also used to, back when I first started in 5th edition, I had kind of a mixed army between Khorne Berserkers, Plague Marines. My Plague Marines were always for holding objectives because they were super hard to shift off of an objective. And then Black Legion. And but I've never been into Slaanesh or Tzeentch. Just never been my interest area. Those weird bird-headed dudes, just not my thing. So, yeah. Let's see here. What do we got? Joshua says he had a bat in his house last night. It got rough, and he feels terrible. Yeah, I haven't had a bat. We haven't had a bat in this house yet. Knocking on wood. But the previous place we lived before here, we had a bat one time. Or maybe a couple. No, we had a bat once, but we had a squirrel 3 times. So that was fun. Yeah. So, VJ Morph says, just rinse your brushes a lot when using metallics and always clean thoroughly with masters straight after. Yeah, I think that you can... I don't think that metallics just straight up and up ruin synthetics. I think they're a little harder, not synthetics, natural brushes. I think they are a little harder on them, though, and you have to probably give them some more aftercare to make sure that they, stay good. Because the thing is, those natural brushes have a tendency to be kind of expensive. Because it's like a synthetic brush, that's easier and cheap. Like natural brushes, they literally have to, I think, pull little hairs out of tiny little creatures or whatever, I'm assuming. And so, yeah. Charles Fox says, since you like Nurgle models, have you ever looked at the Kingdom Death Monster models? I've looked a little bit at them. One of the guys at work did the Kickstarter and will eventually, someday, before the Earth falls into the sun, will get a giant box of Kingdom Death models. And so we're kind of looking forward to checking them out then. But otherwise, I haven't really done that too much. If Nurgle is your jam, Adam, are you going to be grabbing the ones from the new 40k set coming out as info states that they're Nurgle? Death Guard, technically, I guess. But yeah, probably. I will, yeah. Like, I don't know. What I would probably do is most likely I would get the starter box, even though I don't know that I'm going to play 40k when it comes out, new edition. I love what they're doing with it, but I just don't know that I want to. Unless you can play it with like a really small group. Maybe I'll do Kill Team, 8th edition Kill Team. We'll see how that works. But at the very least, I'll get probably the new Death Guards that are going to come in the starter box, and then use them, and I will swap them out with my with my Plague Marines that I'm using for Shadow War. Right now, my main Shadow War force, because it's all completely painted already, is all predominantly Chaos, Plague Marines, and then Cultists. But with these new models, I might just, over time, swap out my old Plague Marines with these Death Guard and use them as basically the same figure, the same stats and everything, but just newer looking models, because they do look, the very few examples I've seen have looked really cool. So definitely. Destruction armies are brutal to play against. They hit like a truck strapped to a meteor. Yeah, one of my good friends here in town, he runs a lot of Chaos Trolls, River Trolls, I don't know, something like that. Chaos Trolls, I think. I don't know. They puke a lot. They're these trolls and they puke a lot, and so they've got a range attack, which is maybe only like 6 or 8 inches, but it's very punishing, and then they're also quite punishing when they're in battle. Now, you can't run a ton of them because they're, high in points, but yeah, they're hard to play against. They're super hard to play against. They go up against my Varangard, and it's a tough battle, so... what else have we got? Faction focus for Tyranids released. Sounds like they're going to be potent in close combat. Well, I would hope. That makes sense. I think it's really interesting that, they're even, like, Games Workshop is even not only just releasing, they're releasing multiple things a day. You know what I mean? Let's go take a quick little field trip again. Go over here real quick. All right, so we go back. No, here we go. And we go to the main page, and we will see, what do we got here? So today, which is a Sunday, oops, I was gone. Today, which is a Sunday, they've released an article about transports for Warhammer 40k and a faction focus about Tyranids. So they're doing a lot of work. You got the Imperial Knights faction focus over here, Stronghold Assault. I haven't even read the Stronghold Assault one yet. That's cool. So yeah, I'll be definitely checking these out as well later on this afternoon. Talking about transports, talking about Tyranids. We still don't know, for those of you that don't pay super close attention to this, we still don't know what... let me do this. We still don't know when this is coming out, this new 40K. The belief is that's probably going to be June. Mid-June. Probably, a lot of people are thinking the 17th, but they haven't announced it yet. So it's interesting that they've been putting out so many articles about it leading up. It's so much different than every other launch they've ever done. And it's interesting. I do wonder if it's maybe just a touch long. Maybe people are starting to get a little bit of fatigue. I don't know. It seems to be, working. People are definitely interested in all that stuff. But yeah, like they would barely tell you that the new edition was coming out back in the old days. Like when we went from 5th to 6th, we knew the date. Like they told us like maybe a month out at best. And they're like, oh, by the way, on this date, this is when it's going to launch. But they didn't say anything about it. It was like very little, if nothing about it. And then the day it came out, everybody just opened up the book and started going through and going, oh, they changed this. And oh, this is the same. Or oh, this is, it's going to be very interesting when this launches, how that's going to work out. Jack Rowley says, GW's new direction gives me hope. See, there you go, right there. And the Nude Painter says, Adam, what are your thoughts on people saying that GW is releasing too much? It seems weird to complain about that. Well, if you're talking about the information, like I was just talking about, well, you could just say, okay, well, then don't pay attention to it, It's kind of like with movies. Sometimes movies put out lots of trailers, and some people don't want to watch the trailer because they want to watch it in the movie, and they don't want it to be spoiled. And sometimes, movie trailers can be spoilers these days. So you just have to try to stay away from watching the trailers. For this, you just have to try to stay away from watching the articles. You may see plenty of headlines and links and shares on Facebook if that's what you're into, but you just be like, well, I'm not going to go click through and read the thing. So it's not that hard. As far as products, and they are releasing tons of products, again, it's the same kind of deal. Just don't buy them. You know what I mean? Nobody's forcing you to buy them. There are people out there who are saying, well, I'm a completist and I have to own everything. And so, therefore, they're putting out too much stuff. I'm like, well, again, you don't have to own everything. It's the way it works. This is your own choice. This is not a mandate. So, if you're not interested in this thing, don't buy it. That's just kind of the way it works. I think it's great that they're putting out the options. For people, I think that they're doing a lot more PR, and that's working out really well for them. Sam Hinchy says, I'm loving how GW got its fire back. How GW got its groove back. Anyway. Joseph says, a lot of brush makers have gone to non-kill methods for the weasel hair after pressure about the old methods. They had to kill the weasels to get the hair? That sounds terrible. Why would you have to kill a weasel to get some of the hair? You could just get tweezers and pluck it or something. I don't know. I'm glad they're not killing weasels. I mean, I don't really know any weasels. Are weasels anything like ferrets? That's not good. Adam is getting on board with the 8th edition drip feed fatigue. I wouldn't say I'm fatigued. I just haven't necessarily, what I do more often than not is just not, jump onto the new article every day. I have a tendency to sometimes go several days in between and then read a couple of them at a time. I do wish that they would actually, I wish that the game came out next week. That'd be awesome, but it's probably not going to happen. So, I still want to know why you have 2 bottles of Bullet Bourbon open, both halfway down. Why not one at a time? Well, so one of them is the bottle that was here at the house, and then going to Adepticon, I bought the bigger bottle. Those are both the same size, but I bought whatever the bigger size, the 1.5 or whatever it is. And I took that with me to Adepticon. And then the guy that I was rooming with, my friend Eric, he brought a small bottle. And long story short, he sent me, we drank the big bottle, not just he and I. Matt helped, and other people did as well. And then he didn't want the small bottle, so he gave it to me, and then I brought it home, and that's why we have 2 small bottles. So, they're really cool bottles. If you can get the label and all the sticky stuff off and everything like that, they got the nice cork, and they're cool bottles. We've got one in the sunroom, in the window, with all the stuff off of it. So anyway, yeah, that's why I've got 2 half-drunk bottles of bourbon in the thing back there. Good eyes. Adam, are you planning on getting into more 40K when 8th edition releases? Also, where can we see your painted miniatures? As far as 40K, I don't know. I don't see myself building a big army because I've got plenty of other games to play. Shadow War, for me, scratches that 40K itch well enough. So, yeah, probably not. I probably won't do a whole 40K army. I don't think so. Shadow War, I'm super in on. And the Age of Sigmar, and Wreck Age, and Song of Blades and Heroes, and Giant Killer Robots when it shows up, hopefully towards the end of the year. And I'm probably looking forward to Shadespire and Conflict 47. I still want to get that rolling a good deal. Those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head right now. Yes. I forget what the second question was. I was thinking about the first question. Oh, and where can we see your painted miniatures? I've posted some here and there on Tabletop Minions Paint Showcase Club on Facebook. Relatively recently, actually, because I finally got a lighting setup that I'm kind of happy with. So I posted some pictures, but I'll probably start posting some more. I don't know. I might put some on the regular Tabletop Minions Facebook page, like make a an album, just so people can, because people ask that question from time to time, and I should probably show off some of my stuff so people at least know that I vaguely know what I'm talking about. Might not be a bad idea. I mean, seriously, I'm not a great painter. I'm a pretty okay tabletop painter, but I'm not a Sam or a Vince Ventruella, or any other people that you kind of might know from who are good painters and also YouTubers. And I'm certainly not like Crystal Brush quality. Absolutely not. Hoping for an early June 40K release. Yeah, early would be nice, but everything I'm hearing is maybe more like the 17th. So, yeah. Grumbleback says, I have a Conflict 47 US Army. Great rules and affordable models. Yeah, I really like their stuff. It is a good rule set. And I've got actually a US starter box and a German starter box. So I can kind of do some stuff like that and, kind of go from there. So Bitmap asks, why are Rune Wars minis in such a complicated looking game? The minis are so nice looking to me, but the gameplay seems so complicated I'd never get my wife to play. I've watched a little bit of a bat rep of Rune Wars, and I don't know, I guess it doesn't seem super complicated to me. It's not really my thing because it's more rank and flank, so yeah, I don't know. I keep thinking about I talked to the patrons on my Patreon about should I do an unboxing, because I have a copy of Rune War that I got at Adepticon, like it was part of the swag bag. So I don't know. I think there's been plenty of unboxings on the YouTube right now, but I still might take a look at it. I've been seeing some people doing painting tutorials of some of the Rune Wars stuff. It'll be interesting to see if it does well for them. Fantasy Flight Games. Those are the same guys who make X-Wing, but they decided to make this game so it's not pre-painted, which I understand. But it's interesting. I don't know how well it'll do for them, but it's definitely a try. They're definitely trying it. Let's see here. What army are you building for Conflict 47? I'll probably end up eventually building both, because I don't know anybody else who plays around here. So, but I kind of like the U.S. guys a little better, just because Shermans are my thing. I like Sherman tanks a lot. So the crazy Sherman, what the heck is the name of the Sherman? Sherman Axe? No, it's Panther Axe, isn't it? I don't know. But it's the Sherman. It's cool. So yeah. Mr. Mendeleev says, I saw your Patreon is doing well. Will you start some new project due to this success? One of the things that the Patreon is doing well, and I really appreciate everybody who helps out with it, and it's great support. One of the things I'm doing is actually I'm upgrading the lighting. Many of you have probably noticed that since I've moved to the basement, the background is kind of dark. So I've actually got a new light coming, big light, coming from Amazon. I ordered it. Two of the three parts are supposed to show up potentially on Monday, and the other part is going to show up sometime before the end of June. Basically, it's an LED, very bright LED light on a stand and all that stuff. And the part that's going to take damn near till June or late June potentially is a giant softbox. It's a 3-foot wide round softbox, which I'll be able to put down in the basement. And I'm trying to remember. It'll probably go on this side, so like this side will be lit a little bit better, and then I'm going to add a little bit of shadow to this side, and that'll help, and then hopefully be able to put some better lights in the background. So that's I'm basically what I'm doing with the money is I'm putting it into a couple of different things, conventions and things like that. It's helping me out a ton with that. Going to Gen Con this year, pretty expensive, but I'm going to be able to do it because of this. I'm also going to announce, by the way, I'm going to do a meetup at Gen Con. So for any people who are going to Gen Con in mid-August, I'm going to be doing a meetup. It's probably going to be on Saturday night. So just FYI. But I want to be able to. So I'm using it for that. I'm using it for more, better equipment, lenses and stuff like that. And then also, to traveling. I'm thinking about going to Philadelphia for the PAX Unplugged. For those of you that don't know, so PAX is the Penny Arcade Expo, and it's mostly about video games. But they've always had like tabletop games there as well, and now they're doing just a convention in Philadelphia, and it's just going to be tabletop. There's no video games there. So this is the first year, and it's coming up in November. So I'm thinking about going to that, and then kind of reporting from there. So it's that kind of stuff that I'm taking the money and just putting it straight back on the channel, because otherwise it just doesn't make any sense to me to just take that money and buy candy, I don't know, or whatever, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's what I'm doing, and it's I'm really appreciated. We hit the first goal recently, so that's why I'm really getting. You're seeing pictures of stuff that I'm working on. I'm working a lot of terrain because I'm going to be starting to do battle reports on the channel, and that's because of the patrons. So definitely, that's where that's at. All right. Fletcher, thoughts on the new Age of Sigmar Skirmish? Did I miss it? Yes, you did. It was about an hour and a half ago. We talked about it. So hopefully you can go back and check it out a little bit later. I think it's going to be a smart idea on their part, and it'll be kind of interesting to see how it works out. After the Age of Sigmar rocky start, do you believe it's working out well for Games Workshop? Yeah, I do, because like I said, they really are starting to... the sales are going up. Like I said, there is a website called ICV2, which is the Internal Correspondence version 2. It's aimed towards retailers, and they have a rating that they do every quarter. And the last 2 quarters, 40K has been in second place, whereas Star Wars X-Wing has been in first. But last quarter, Age of Sigmar was finally in the top 5. It was number 4, above Hordes, but below War Machine. So it's doing better than some of the haters to some degree, who can be kind of loud on the internet. It's doing better than they say. So just by sales, because this information is coming from talking to stores, talking to manufacturers. It's not just like a single metric. ICP2 does a bunch of, and they explain on their website what they do, but I don't know how they find the data, but that's where it's coming from. So it seems to be working out really well. Matt Ligori says, I'll be at PAX. Great donuts down the block. Oh, that sounds pretty cool. Yeah, I've never been to Philadelphia, so if I do get to go, and I'm hoping to go, that'd be kind of cool. Speaking of PAX Unplugged, will there be some podcast interview coming in for the next month? Speaking of PAX Unplugged, there will be some podcast interview coming in the next month or more for more info on it. Okay, that's cool. I haven't listened to the PAX podcasts in quite some time. The Penny Arcade podcasts. I used to, and I just haven't, because I don't play as many video games anymore, so there's that. Ruben says, Adam, have you read the Beyond the Gates of Antares rulebook from the Adepticon goodie bag. Thoughts? I have not read it. I literally just flipped through it and looked at like pictures and stuff like that. It was more of an aspect of looking at like how clean it is, how clear it is, and that kind of stuff. But I haven't read the rules. No, I haven't had the time, sadly. Let's see here. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks for all the tips. No problem, Hernan. Yep, we're just about done with the show here. Grumbleback asks, will it be like Frostgrave or Mordheim? Not so much like Frostgrave. A little like Mordheim in that it kind of uses the same kind of fluff Mordheim does. It's a modification of Mordheim fluff, in my opinion, but it's a little bit more like Kill Team for Age of Sigmar, if that makes any sense. That's kind of what the new skirmish game is like. So, let me see. What else have we got? Do you think that I should wait until 8th edition 40k comes out to start buying? I don't think that that's a bad idea, frankly, because, well, unless there's some models that you're like really, really into, then, you know, start building them and start painting them. If you are concerned about, well, is it going to be competitive, because you're more of a competitive player, you play at tournaments and things like that, then I would definitely wait till the rules come out, because you're going to want to know that kind of stuff. But if you just like to play for fun and you like to have models that you enjoy, then definitely, you know, go and pick some up. None of them are going to go away. None of them are going to be, you know, discontinued or anything like that. They've already said that emphatically, so that's pretty cool. Let's see here. Nick Larking, do you have a link to the GW Financial Report article? I do not for the financial report. If you want to look at that rating thing that I was talking about before, as far as sales are concerned, it's ICV2. So it's I as in Ingrid, C as in cat, V as in Victor, the number 2.com, I think. And in there they have, if you search through that website, which is aimed at retailers, they do have charts and sales charts, and that's where you would find it. The 40K stuff and the stuff that we are into under non-collectible miniatures, whereas collectible miniatures would be, well, they'd be the other kind, you know, like HeroClix and stuff like that. So, all right, well, that's pretty much it. It's 11:01 my time, and it's a different time your time. So I hope that you guys have had a good time. I've had a good time with the chat, and if you're, you know, interested, that stuff from Age of Sigmar Skirmish coming out should be in your stores next week on Saturday. The next show that we'll be doing will be in 2 weeks, and it will be, in theory, if everything works out well, it will be live from Tabletop Minions Expo, and it will be, in theory, with a live studio audience, and Sam will probably be there, hopefully, and we'll have guests, and it'll be great, and we'll see how it goes. But anyway, hopefully you can check that show next 2 weeks from now, and otherwise, I'll see you later on, and thanks for watching.